This is Geek Gab with your host, Arnold, me, Daddy Warpig. We are back, Geek Gab, for Monday, November 13th, 2023. Dornell, how was your week?
Bro, my week was great. Uh, I'm not going to bore you with the mundanity, the mundane day to day stuff. I'm still happily married. Made it 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks. Uh, Gaming is good. Got back to playing Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to have some interesting stuff going on probably next week. Where the I do want to talk about this, but first, real quick, I don't know, Warpig, if you're doing this, but and cover your ears, Mr. Niemeyer, cover your ears. I am 4 or 5 episodes into Loki season 2. Uh, it's uh, it's not really Loki, but I'll tell you more when I'm finished. I don't know if you've been watching that.
I have not. I have. I, I just lost interest in things Marvel. I mean, maybe I should watch it. I just.
Nope, no, you shouldn't.
Listen again.
I, I think that's the sign of healing that even you, who you subject yourself regularly to some of the best and worst that the pop cult has to offer.
Taking that as a no.
What was that?
He said he'll take it as a no.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Um, if you are sick of the Marvel stuff, that means that the world is healing. Uh, that's good.
I mean, it's not so
Um,
much that I got vomitously ill and I rejected it. I just stopped caring. Uh, I mean, I do want to see the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because I heard that's actually okay, but it's on Disney Plus. I could have seen it at any time in the last couple of months and just haven't bothered. I've watched uh, three different bad sci-fi prestige sci-fi series on Apple Plus. Um, and I haven't watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is only 2 hours, and I've watched, that's like 30 hours of mediocre sci-fi on Apple Plus. So that'll tell you how little enthusiasm I have. I mean, it's not, this hatred and rejection I see. It's just apathy, which is worse. Completely apathetic towards the MCU and everything to do with it.
Good for you. Uh, good for you. I think one of the worst pieces of news I've heard uh, come across my desk in the past few weeks not has nothing to do with the Middle East and everything to do with uh, strikes like the writer strike and the Actors Guild strikes actually being resolved. I was hoping that that would be shut down forever. Alas,
The Marvels just released the latest MCU movie, and at least on its opening day, had made less money, made 50% less money, or a third less money than the Flash, which was DC's notorious bomb this year. It's the lowest opening weekend of any MCU movie ever. Uh, it is a disaster. Um, the levels of cope I've seen are off the charts for people getting angry about why it's not making money. Um, it's insane. Some of the excuses I've seen. One excuse was like, "Oh, men are so sexist. They didn't come out and see it." And it's like 60% of the audience was male, so it's not men's fault for being sexist. And the other one is, "Oh, people are so racist. They didn't want to see it with diverse female leads." And it's like, your entire claim for putting in diverse characters was that it would widen the audience and sell more money. So now you're saying that the diverse audience caused people to stay away because they're racist. Didn't that just immediately disprove the last 8 years of Hollywood's claims, and also the claims on Warhammer, and also the claims on video games? The new Saints Row. I mean, didn't you just in attempting to defend the Marvels completely disprove 8 years of your Panderstone claims? I did watch South Park's Into the Panderverse special. So yeah, it's a disaster, and the copium is they're mainlining copium right now. They're not just breathing it through a gas mask. They're freebasing it. They've made it into little crack rocks, and they're freebasing that stuff. They're injecting it directly into their eyeballs with hypodermic needles. That's how bad the copium cravings are hitting them over the Marvels.
The folks responsible for that sort of thing and who are still clinging to any sort of fandom, they've made their bed, and the bed is on fire, and all they have to do is get up and leave the bed, and they won't. You're not going to destroy anybody with facts and logic, Warpig. Sorry to say.
Yep. But our audience appreciates it.
One thing that is getting destroyed is the movie industry. Did I tell you guys the theater that I used to manage finally closed after like 40 years?
After 40 years. That's a shame.
Yeah, it is. This one where those ghost stories I told on my blog happened. So it'd be more difficult to get in there and do like haunted Segway tours or something.
Are they going to preserve the building? That sounds like something that could be preserved as a historic site.
Oh yeah, because it's attached to like a rec complex. There's a gym and like an off-track betting place in a bowling alley. So I'm sure they'll do something with it.
Okay. So that's good-ish. Just to show you a sign of the times, on honeymoon I was in a tourist-ish town on the Oregon coast, and they had this old movie theater. This I don't know when it was built. It had to have been mid-century. It is a beautiful theater, and we went in to see because the outside had menus for like a pub, and so we're like,
Nice.
this is great, like dinner theater. Let's go in and get some food and see what they're showing. And we go in and we see that the lights are on completely, and there's just massive monitors and screens on the back wall, and it's not a dinner theater, it's just a sports pub that happens to be in a former movie theater.
Oh,
And
psych.
that made me really sad.
Yeah, that's depressing.
That's one of the nice things about Utah is we have a lot of dinner theaters around here. I mean, even like small, mid-sized towns have active dinner theaters with live plays.
Best place to see movies in Salt Lake City is called Broovies.
I believe I went there.
It's just a bar with a movie theater in the back, and it's dirty, covered in, splashed beer and popcorn everywhere, and you get nasty nachos, and you pay like $2.50 for a movie ticket.
Yeah, me and my cousin saw The Mechanic 2 with Jason Statham there. They have good pizza by the slice.
They do. They make good pizza.
They do.
Awesome.
Let's recommend for the audience.
Geek Gab road trip to Salt Lake City to watch movies that we could have just streamed online. When? Yes. Go ahead.
So, anyways, let's move on from some depressing stuff about the movie industry collapsing, and go on to exciting new stuff about indies doing well.
I love indies doing well.
Yay.
Hey, welcome back to the show, Brian Niemeier. For anybody who's listening, I see lots of friendly faces in the chat. You guys all know this man. Everybody listening later, just so that you know, Brian Niemeier, best-selling science fiction author, winner of the Dragon Award for Best Horror, and also former co-host of the Geek Gab, which, and let me check my notes here, is the best podcast live show on YouTube at this time. So welcome back to the show, man.
So wait, back. I was gone. I'm sorry. I've lost all concept of time. When are we?
When are we? We are. It is 2023. Do you need more specific than that? Do you need to?
I don't want to know. But thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah. So you are on to talk about the new hotness. Let's see. Last time we talked, you had just done your final X-Seed book. And what have you been up to since then?
Oh, a lot of editing. I have gone all in on Neo patronage as well. I saw some indicators in the market that told me, yeah, it's time to stop hemming and hawing in case plans don't work out, and just put all my chips on the table. When I saw our friend of the show, Jakob Merkin, doing really well with his manga, and then Alexander Macris just blew it out of the water with Axe, and even David Stewart is getting back on the Patreon bandwagon. So I started up a Patreon and a Subscribe Star, and that's doing really well. Like the very first guy to sign up day one backed at the highest tier.
Wow.
Yeah, so my Patreon is like, and Subscribe Star combined are almost paying my rent like 2 months in, and they're only going up. A lot of fun. A lot of folks here in chat are my glorious and valued patrons, and just the feedback in our top secret patron only Discord has been humbling, but also highly satisfying. Like, because authors attract other authors, like calls to like. So I've got a lot of aspiring and even other pro writers there, and I just keep hearing comments like, "Wow, I've learned more from just hanging out in this Discord for 2 weeks than in like an entire year of college level creative writing courses." So that's it's good to know I'm making a dent, making a difference, and adding value to these guys.
That's outstanding.
And your patronage just works. So that was to supplement my previous Neo patronage efforts, which were crowdfunding through Indiegogo, which I started with my first Comet Frame X-Seed. That's back in 2018, if you can believe it.
That sounds like a long time ago.
Right? I mean, that's why I'm just kind of stuck in a sporadic time warp. Because I mean, for me, it's just been one long, extended effort. But I'm changing gears a little bit. And wow, it's a bit ironic because when I finished the Soul Cycle in 2017, I then announced to my readers that, okay, the next series is going to be giant robots. The next 2 series, actually. And the Soul Cycle readers were kind of like, we're not sure about this East meets West Stompy plus Spiky Mech thing, but okay, you've earned our trust. We'll bear with you. And then Combat Frame XC just took off, became my most successful series by far. And now that I thought, okay, well, I'll go back to the Soul Cycle universe and I'll reveal the backstory as promised, like finally. And now people are kind of saying, oh, well, we missed the giant robots. So
Oh,
it's, yeah, and we've been rocking a hard place, but no, we're going to have a lot of fun with this. People already are, because as you know, Dornall, our most popular feature of the Comet Frame Exceed Indiegogos was the legendary Build-A-Max. I believe you yourself
yes.
included a band or two, didn't you?
I may have. I regret that I missed the first book, but I made up for that by making the best mech in every successive book. And if you choose, if those of you hanging out on the Discord choose to take that as throwing shade, well, the gauntlet's thrown down. You better build a better weapon.
There you go. Challenge
Yeah.
issued.
Full disclosure, not only do I like your work, but I've been supporter the whole time and did a lot of Build-A-Mech stuff on Combat Frame Exceed. I've said it before on the Geek Gab, and I'll say it again. You know, you will not only get your money's worth, you will get a good, enjoyable experience. And at the end of the process, you'll have a book, a story that you helped make happen. And yeah, you know, you can always go back to those chapters and reread that and say, "Wow, that's cool. What Brian did with my idea, that's so good."
Well, you guys have both shown me like all the support in the world all these years, so I appreciate it. And someone has picked up the gauntlet in chat. Oh, and it's DJ. Oh, okay.
DJ's core first is the only thing that comes close.
Yeah, that is close. We do pretty much have.
And he points out
two
he's
perennial-
echoing what I'm saying. Like there are things that the idea influences in future books and stories as well. Well, okay. So how do you beat Build-A-Mech? Let's talk about what it is that you're writing, because you touched on a whole bunch of things there. And I just briefly want to mention the Neo patronage thing. You've got a Subscribe Star and a Patreon. I put those links in the show notes. You'll be able to find them yourself searching for Brian Niemeier. And one of the things that's most valuable, what I'm hearing from you, is that the Discord access, the backers Discord, is one of the most valuable perks, and people get a lot of good advice and knowledge and value out of that. Is that accurate?
That's what folks are telling me, and it really has been amazing to watch it thrive and grow. Like I've now got other members of the group coming together and just forming like writing accountability partnerships on their own, like setting up impromptu beta reading groups, which just sprang up on its own. But the main draw was being able to get early, like first access to my writing, because every tier gets access to the Discord, but at like the beginning, like lower middle tiers, you start getting access to my first drafts and even outlines and notes. So right now, like some of the folks in chat who are my patrons have seen the first half of the outline for my new book before anyone else but me. And not only that, but picking up what you and DJ were talking about and running with it, you get to leave structured feedback on my work in progress documents. So you can influence the course of my books from the foundation up. It's ground floor access.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. And I can't help but think, I'm in the mood to throw shade tonight, guys. So here we go. I can't help but think of all those extremely successful so-called authors who get paid however many thousands of dollars a month to not write, the Martins and the Rothfusses of the world. And how much would you pay to sort of get that access to your favorite author? Well, you're actually doing that work. You're not only are you getting access to those fans and those readers and everything, but they also have that certainty. Like if you haven't written anything in a month, they're gonna notice. They're gonna say, "Hey, man, did you make any blog posts this month?" Right? Uh, they're gonna keep you accountable, and since you actually enjoy writing, you get to. It's like a virtuous circle.
It is. And how can I forget that? I see Emperor is also in chat. Okay. What I love is each BAM backer brings his own skill set and strengths to the table. So, Dornall, you and I tend to play off each other in this hideous mad scientist feedback loop where we just come up with these horrible monstrosities that end up being like final boss mechs. And yeah, DJ, he's got Kerr first. He's got the classic like super robot, like night robot feel. I mean, I'm sure folks at home saw his BAM drawn by Arbanon. I mean, it's got a freaking superheated chainsaw sword. What more do you want? But then Embreb always comes up with just the craziest, most horrifying weapon ideas, like planet sterilizing matter-antimatter reaction, like turning all carbon into a bomb, a la the end of Ender's Game. Kind of just psycho stuff. Yeah, I love it. I love them all. It's like trying to choose my favorite child. I'm just gonna let you fight it out.
Definitely a highlight for me for the Xseeds. And also, full disclosure, me and DJ kinda formed a back channel where we're using each other as mirrors for our weapon ideas.
Oh, I should
So
mention that. The
yeah,
successor,
what's that?
the successor to Build Mech for this campaign.
Absolutely. We should lay out the. Tell me about this campaign. I'm gonna put for those of you watching, I'm gonna put the Indiegogo on screen. This is called The Burned Book, and it's funding on Indiegogo right now. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's me keeping a promise implicitly made as far back as my first novel, Ethereal, and started sketching out in Soul Dancer. So, The Burn Book is the first book in the Arkwright cycle, and unlike certain other name authors that Dornall mentioned earlier, you guys know I can finish a series because I've already finished 3. And also, as my backers know, this one is also fully sketched out. So I know how it ends. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to finish it. And I have to because it's a prelude to the Soul Cycle. Okay, so it goes back. And as Knights of the Old Republic is to Star Wars, the Burn Book is to the Soul Cycle.
So I was trying to work in an HK joke there, but that's amazing.
Oh.
Which is something that until you told me and before the Burn Book, I knew that this was going to be your next project, but it was still something that was surprising to me. So I'm going to ask the obvious question here. Uh, what what made you make that promise? What made you decide to go back to the Soul Cycle?
I always planned to. I just decided to do a palette cleanser with Combat Ram Exceed because when I finished the Ophian Rising final book in the Soul Cycle, I had fully set the stage. I'd really said what I wanted to say with that universe for the time being, and wanted to recharge my batteries by going and doing something completely different because, well, I had ADD and I can only maintain my attention on one thing for so long. So my period of hyper focus that lasted a good 3 years had pretty much been spent on Soul Cycle, but I was intrigued by this character some Soul Cycle fans may remember named Almeth Elisine, who shows up in Soul Dancer. He's mentioned in all 4 books, I believe, and like it's a brief cameo in Soul Dancer, but he kind of emerges from kind of the shadows and takes center stage in the 3rd act of Ophian Rising. And you get hints throughout the series of this character's just towering, epoch-spanning backstory. And I already had it planned out and wanted to share it, but knew that that was going to take its own 4-book series. So I've now recharged my batteries, I've recuperated, and I'm back, and I'm going to tell that story, the story behind the story of the Soul Cycle, and fill in most, not all, but most of those key dangling deep lore threads that are alluded to throughout the Soul Cycle, and kind of let people scratching their heads in a good way, like, oh, I'm intrigued, I want to know more. Well, I'm going to give it to you.
I'm gonna have to go back and reread that stuff because I do remember. I remember that character, but I'm gonna have to pick up all of those plot threads to get into this. That's good though. It sounds like all right, because I think and uh, I'm gonna play the part of the wounded fan here and point out that most prequels were in popular fiction have been sort of unneeded or unwelcome or uh, afterthoughts, and so I can anticipate at least part of your answer that of course you would already always planned this isn't a Star Wars-esque prequel, so I know you're cognizant of that stuff. So can you tell me how you're going to avoid that problem of of having a prequel that seems unnecessary, and what this is going to is it going to be enjoyable on its own, and is it going to be enjoyable as a prequel as well?
Yes, this is a great jumping on point. I will also point out that addressing what you said about having to go back and reread and get caught up. Well, one, you don't have to do that because this is really where the story starts chronologically. Like this is thousands of years before an ethereal, so it makes a great point of departure. 2, anyone who backs at the $10 level or above automatically gets every Soul Cycle book for free with the perk. So I got you covered there, and I fulfill those immediately. Like you back the campaign now, and like right after this, I will email you all 4 Soul Cycle ebooks, so you can get started on that.
Wow.
Yeah, but the final book in the Archive Cycle is going to end with the Battle of the Void, which like Dame's grandfather and Jaren's father were in. So it ends just like a generation before an ethereal. So we segue nicely right into the Soul Cycle. And I've already got this all, I've got all the notes, I've got it all written out. So the difference between the Arkwright Cycle and the Star Wars prequels are that, unlike George Lucas, sorry, George, I'm not bluffing or fudging when I say that I've had this planned for like 20 years. Because I could show you my notebook. Like, I have my notebook right here. Don't know if my mic is picking this up, but I'm flipping through the burn book notebook right now, which I've had for over a decade. We are good to go. I just need to outline it and then write it.
Okay.
I'm halfway done outlining it. Yeah.
So you know what you want to do. You know how it's going to fit into the overall story. You've had this planned out for years. My next really important question. So what kind of book are we getting? Is it going to be a book like Netherial and Soul Dancer? Because the cover's telling me something else.
The cover by our exquisite Soul Cycle cover artist Marcelo Orsi Blanco, who is returning, is telling you correctly. because this is not weird science fantasy. This is dark fantasy. This one's 99.99% pure, grim, brutal fantasy book, filling in the deep lore of the Soul Cycle. So another way I like to describe it is, so imagine Michael Moorcock of Elric fame being called in to finish Berserk for Kentaro Miura.
Okay. Those are, and I have to claim ignorance here. I know exactly what those are, and so I get the vibe, for lack of a better word. But I haven't seen or read either. But dark fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have to be. First of all, it would have to be for being in the Soul Cycle universe, and it would kind of have to be to be one of your books, Brian.
Right,
Sorry to say it.
Look at all those swords sticking out of the ground. I mean, something went down there.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be good.
Yeah, he's not just looking cool. He's finished with a grueling battle.
And there's one ray of light shining down, which is thematically appropriate.
That's too bad. That's not dark enough. But I mean, it's better than commissioning just a plain black cover.
Well, here's the thing. This is going to blow your mind. It blew mine. That cover image already existed because when I contacted Marcelo, he was so busy with his current gig, he was not going to be able to guarantee that he would have the cover, like a brand new commission cover, done in time to promote the campaign. So I asked him, okay, well, do you have an existing image that I could license for promotional purposes? And he said, oh, sure, look through my portfolio. So this was one of the ones that immediately stood out to me. I was like, whoa. And when you read the book, there are a ton of elements from this cover, which he drew like 10 years ago with no foreknowledge, like before he ever heard of me, that like are direct thematic references to the actual story.
All right, that's spooky.
Like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's a signal grace. And it was one of the few that he had just done as like an essay on his own. So, by the way, this is a sketch. This is not the final cover. He should be done with that any minute, but he is expanding this and refining it into an even better finished one.
Oh, okay. So that explains sort of the artifacts on the armor and everything that looks like he's been dipped in acid or run through a potato peeler or something.
Well, there's a good chance he was attacked by like a frenzied dwarf with a potato peeler or something, but I have to ask Marcelo. But no, this is just a sketch. And when you see how much better he has gotten since the Ophian Rising, even, like I can't wait to see this, and you guys are going to be among the first to see it when he's done, which like could be tonight. I don't know. He said he's
that'd be great.
Yeah. But yeah,
okay.
It's dark fantasy, but where the ray of light signifies is that unlike George R. R. Martin or even Glenn Cook, it's not going to be like stale 90s edge, right? Where, oh, well, old pub won't let us actually take a risk or say anything against the status quo, so we'll fig leaf it with gratuitous gore and stunt deaths and just grinding nihilism.
Right.
No, because I have the freedom as an indie author to do whatever I want and actually say what I want to say. So brace yourselves for perhaps even a jarring message, but not one that's just like crapsack grimdark world. Because whereas the Soul Cycle focused more on factors like mages who use workings, and then later Nexists who are, well, they're psychics. The Burn book is going to focus on a very much underdeveloped aspect in the Soul Cycle because there just weren't a lot of them, which is the various priesthoods. So it's going to deal with the interactions of the various world religions that coexisted and interacted on Midgar before the Guild rose to power. And they operate by totally different dynamics and totally different rules.
Okay. And since you're not doing the 90s nihilistic or the George R.R. Martin gore fest or sex fest, what makes it dark?
The darkness is more character driven. And I got to give a shout out to Embrad because his work of weapon perfectly encapsulated the way that theme is expressed. And it has to do with characters in the single-minded pursuit of what they think they want. There it is. Yeah. By the way, the contest is still open until tomorrow to name that one. We did name the previous one, courtesy of DJ Gray Mercy. But yeah, that blue titanium, purple wreathed Swiss saber is still yet to settle on it. But anyway, yeah. So it's characters who think they know what they want, but haven't fully stopped to consider the risks or define the good. Each getting his own monkey's paw. So the character of Falthrax, he's a priest of Bifron, which is the god of augury and oracles, and he has received a reliable prophecy that he is doomed to a horrible fate. Like a film noirish, like the more you try to dig yourself out, just the deeper in you're going to get you and everyone around you. And he's just obsessed with averting it by whatever means necessary. And that ruthlessness leads him to start to slip away from ethics and from keeping the good in sight. And he's not the only one. So that's not to say there won't be gore and there won't be violence. Oh yeah, they're going to be, but they're going to be conflict. Right? I mentioned this before. There's a difference between action, conflict, and violence. They are not the same thing. And the key difference is stakes. And the stakes in the burn book are going to be highly personal. Like they'll have to do, because again, one of the main dynamics is like faith in the priesthood. So the stakes are going to be like your fate or your eternal soul or salvation or damnation or good or evil. So we're tackling the big questions, big issues.
As is appropriate to the soul cycle, I suppose.
Oh, thank you. Take that as a compliment. But along the way, to produce that blood and guts, we're going to need some magical, possibly even sentient weapons. And that's where Work a Weapon, which is a spiritual successor to Build a Mech, comes in.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, I'm number 3 to make a Work a Weapon. And I wanted to ask about that because, well, first of all, we need to actually work on mine. But I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about what you're looking for. Oh, and before we get into that, I wanted to give Warpig a chance to ask any questions he had because I have a feeling this is going to take a few minutes.
I don't have any questions so far. It sounds very intriguing. And it sounds like anybody who enjoyed the Soul Cycle books should be champing at the bit for this series. And if you didn't enjoy the Soul Cycle books, jump on in, read them, and enjoy them.
Yeah, thanks for the ringing endorsement, because I'm not just serving you the same warmed over meal. This is a new twist on a classic dish. Think of it that way. So maybe there were reasons if you didn't like the Soul Cycle, you didn't like it. Perhaps you didn't like the genre blending. Well, this is more of a pure fantasy. So if you like epic fantasy, this will be right up your alley. The key plot revolves around an Eastern emperor commissioning a motley group of diplomats and adventurers to find a land route across this vast continent modeled after Asia to attempt to reach the West and prove a number of legends along the way, including finding extant fragments of the Burned Book, which is a renowned book of prophecy, which, by the way, is what that doomed, fated priest mentioned before is after, because his auguries have told him that if there is any way to change his fate, it lies in the Burned Book's pages. So I'm connecting all these different narrative threads.
Excellent. I'm gonna refer to the Indiegogo page one more time.
And speaking of which, I'm going to do a little test here. See if I can post a link in chat. So there you go, chat. See if this works.
So we discussed doing a little bit of preview of the Work a Weapon on air, which if you guys aren't convinced now, I hope hearing us begin the process really help you understand what is going on.
Oh, speaking of what's going on, looks like my links aren't going through.
Okay, great. Go ahead and put it in the private chat, and I don't have time to resolve it right now.
Sure.
So Worker Weapon's one of the
There it is.
options here on the Indiegogo page. It's a perk. That's what they call them. Perk. And yeah, you're on stretch goal 5, by the way. So this is fully funded. Like, it's happening.
Yeah, we met our initial goal on day 1. It was the second fastest funding of all my campaigns. But then something interesting happened, which was I got slapped with a shadow ban. Now, previously, Twitter had been like my number 1 or number 2 funding source for all of my previous campaigns. And needless to say, the pledges from that source plummeted. Now, it did finally get lifted on October 24th, but we had lost a ton of momentum. So I've been trying to claw it back by hook or by crook. Finally did. But we are still way behind where like the Exceed S series books have been. However, we are within like $270 of beating the third Exceed book, CY 42nd Coming. So, yes, I believe if someone claims a Work a Weapon tonight, we might get over the goal and get the Burn book into the top 4. And I would love to see that, and I'd love to make another Work Weapon with the Geek Gab chat, because you guys are special.
In spite of the shadow ban. That's outstanding.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys all about the new marketing strategies that I took off the air, but my Discord patrons know all about it because I've been sharing my insider tips and marketing tricks with them. So a little plug for that too.
Get it.
But I've been trying some new stuff. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'll save those final thoughts for the end. Are you up for working a weapon right now?
Well, if we're getting started, yeah. Let's tell you what. Let's scroll to where Grey Mercy and the as yet unnamed Saber are.
Okay. Is that down the page?
Yeah, it should be.
There we go. The Grey Mercy. This is the first weapon. Sword caging a tainted soul who must aid the wielder's redemption to be purified and released.
Yep.
Interesting. It's a possessed sword, and the soul, but in order for the soul to be freed, it has to help the owner of the sword do
Yeah,
something.
who is demon possessed. So they gotta help each other,
Aha.
redeem each other. Yeah.
And the unnamed one, this saber with the purple aura that you mentioned, a saber whose aspect changes depending on the wielder's virtue. But is the dark or the light blade sharper?
Yeah, because if you look closely, that is actually a mirror polished titanium blued blade, which is being overtaken by like a gray, dark, pitted, like rusted rot surrounded in a purple aura. It's like burning its way down the blade. So it's in
Aha.
the process of turning evil in that picture.
I like it. And we've already brought up Star Wars, so it's fair for me to say it definitely has a light side of the Force, dark side of the Force feel to it.
Yeah, Embreb, who created it, called it either Schrodinger's sword or like the One Ring, except it's not actually cursed and doesn't actually make you do anything. But again, it's a monkey's paw. It will heighten what is already in your soul. It will give you what you think, what you believe you want.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, so that's starting to move things around in my head.
Good.
So here's where I like to start, and this may be unusual for you've heard it before. This may be unusual for the backers. So in terms of weapons or enchanted items, what does the story need? Are there particular characters or situations or plot devices that you're looking for? Can you tell me a little bit more about the setting or the story you're putting together?
Absolutely. So the main setting is like late antiquity, early medieval China.
Mhm.
Very much based on that. Except you may notice that okay, well, there's a Chinese Jian up there. That's what Grey Mercy is based on. That makes sense. But then, okay, then we have like a 16th century Swiss cavalry saber. Wait a minute. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's like the old Highlander line. Like that's like finding a 747 before the Wright brothers, right?
Right.
Well, it's because on Mythgar we have a wild card factor, which is the Gen race, which are an ancient humanoid race which developed sapiens long before humanity and have like a million-year head start on us. So they've already developed all this technology, and while they try not to let any of it get out into the gen pop, it's inevitable that some of it does. So humans have access to all weapons of their civilization would have produced at their technology level, but also have managed to copy and even get a hold of some weapons from this more advanced race. So that's why one character carries a rapier, for example. Now, in terms of characters, so we have a disaffected, kind of wayward child of Gen nobility. His race has withdrawn from the world of men to an island refuge. Think kind of the size of like the Hawaiian Islands and just as remote, where they just kind of sequestered themselves. And he started this gilded cage. So he hops a ship for the continent and has just been kind of slumming it, not really, kind of directionless, right? But he gets tapped to go on this journey. So you've got him, and then there's the aforementioned priest of Bifron. I do have another weapon in mind for him. There is one he picks up later, which has a water elemental bound to it, and she can manifest to different degrees. And at the highest degree, she can actually just pop out of the sword, form a full-size body out of water, and wield herself. If that makes sense. But then there's Lord Marcus Grey, who is a diplomat from the West, who is actually chronoblind. Like, he cannot use workings or mysteries or anything, so he just relies on his consummate skill as a diplomat. So again, he's like this enlightened intellectual kind of guy. He carries a rapier. Then there is Evelyn, who is a priestess of Midris, which is which Soul Cycle fans may remember Solomon Yenizan was. So that's the dualistic religion with Midris the good god and Arakthon the evil god in a perpetual war. Just feel free to stop me if I feel like I'm monopolizing things. I'll let you I'll let that percolate and let you ask any questions.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got weapons picked out for a few people. It sounds like there'd be a rapier up for grabs. I was actually thinking of getting away from the sword form factor,
Oh, sure.
mostly because we already have two swords, but a rapier would be fine. I'm more interested in the sort of, what's the spiritual or what's the enchantment aspect of it. Now, this being the soul cycle, we already have um, one sword that sort of has a soul entrapped in it. And this one, the second one, sort of feeds off the soul of the wearer. So is that something that you are trying to encourage or prefer in terms of what sorts of powers you're looking for, to sort of stay on theme and stick with a soul affecting weapon
Wow. Well,
or spirit?
it's pure serendipity that DJ and Emperor came up with similar ideas, but from different, really opposite angles, which I love. I love the symmetry that Grey Mercy's virtue, if you will, or alignment depends on the nature of the soul trapped in it. Because it can, according to DJ, I believe, trap any soul, but only one at a time. So when one manages to be purgated and freed, it can then soak up another one. And if that one is evil, then the sword takes on like an evil flavor. If it's a good soul, then it takes on more of a virtuous aspect. Whereas the saber has this light or dark side, like you were saying, it's like a two-sided coin, and which one it shows depends on the wielder. And that just happened that way. They kind of arrived at the same point by different directions. But no, as I say in the perk, it doesn't have to be a sword. It can have any effect on it that you want that's possible within the soul cycle. And as you can see from those two, there's a broad range of possible effects. So like getting into what these two actually do. So they both defend their wielders from magical attacks to some extent. Like the saber can actually cut workings and mysteries and glamours to kind of dispel them. And then the Grey Mercy, I think, more just projects like a magical protection aura around the user. They're both incredibly sharp. In fact, legends say that the saber can cut anything, even possibly silver cords, although that hasn't been tested yet. And also strengthens the user's resolve. And then with the current soul trapped in it, Grey Mercy is also heavily invested in protecting its current wielder.
I see.
Yeah.
I have two thoughts that aren't necessarily compatible, but the first thought is that, especially with the idea of the soul trapped in the weapon, or the idea of a weapon being intelligent, that we're not really making a sword or a weapon here. We're making a weapon-shaped character.
Yes.
Which could be, it could be very, it could have a great impact on the story. And going along the same lines as these other weapons, a forceful character that directs the action would be, to me, more interesting or valuable and or disruptive to the author's plans if I were the type of person to come up with a horrible idea and make you fit that in somehow. Something that you could use as a wedge or a, well, if it truly is a wedge, it's going to be an axe. That's for sure.
A foil.
A foil. I
There you
like
go.
it. Which would closely match the rapier.
The
I love it.
rapier being a literal foil to a character's plans.
Yes. That's a great direction.
Delicious.
I like that. I'm gonna we're closing in on time, so I'm gonna go over my other idea, and this may not be end up being part of the weapon, but to what if it were a spirit or a force of nature? And I pictured in my mind as you were describing this layabout. Did you say he lived on an island or just a survivalist, something like that?
Oh no, he wasn't if we're talking about the Gen like lordling. No, it's more like a remote resort retreat. So it's
Gotcha.
pretty civilized, but it's just like where almost all the Gen race on Midgar have just withdrawn to. So it's kind of like the Rivendell or Lothlorien of this world, but on an island.
Because I'm not. All right, so these swords here, particularly the saber, like that's an officer's weapon. We're looking at officers' weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and I was thinking the other direction. Instead of having, an officer's weapon representing these virtues or vices or anything like that, let's eliminate virtue and vice altogether and make this weapon a force of nature. I think of a hunting weapon. I think of a spear or a harpoon, and um, instead of enhancing the user's soul, it's more atavistic. It has its own plan. It has its own desire. Its own desire is to hunt, and it will turn its wielder into the consummate hunter, and good and evil and all that stuff falls away. Just his relationship with any antagonist is predator prey. This would be perfect as a curse for someone with a moral code a uh, or a villain or an antagonist who shifts from being someone who is working against your plans or you think they have some semblance of honor or loyalty or rules of engagement or whatever, that sort of noble officer warrior code, and it's just a monster that is out, and kill it will kill everything and anything and everything to stop you from getting what you want. And gradually the weapon transforms the wielder over time. And we would be subtle at first, but then they would truly become not, I say monstrous, but more like an animal. Can you use that?
I'm sure I can. So let me see here. All right, so yeah, that definitely sounds more like an antagonist's weapon. So in terms of antagonists, we got a few big ones. We got a few big groups. So one are the Troll, which is the main nation that makes up what's called the Shining Host, which, I mean, think of the Mongols, right?
Yeah.
They're just a roving, raiding war machine expert horseman, and along with that would come proficiency in spears. Then also, there's a Wayward Legion, which is a medieval PMC who, during the course of the story, have been hired by this one port town to defend against a siege by the Shining Host. And they are commanded by a couple of real winners, one of whom is named Raim Tenos, who is a priest of Elathan, which will be immediately familiar to Soul Cycle readers. And yeah, he is just a despicable human being with no redeeming values whatsoever, but he's still a lovable cur with no redeeming values. Kind of the guy you love to hate, but then he is the lieutenant of the commander of the Wayward Legion, for whom I don't really have a weapon yet.
Okay. Honestly, both ideas fit, and the obvious beneficiary of the atavistic weapon, the hunting spear, that could be those tribesmen, right? Yeah, maybe they're modern and civilized now, but there's a legendary warrior or a legendary hunter, and if you find his spear, it'll turn you into him or some sort of monster.
Let me point out. Let me stop right there and point out something else, because we might have another bit of coincidence here, because you said atavistic. So I talked about the interplay of different religions in this book. The most popular religion in this port town that I'm talking about is atavism. That is what it's called, and it's the philosophy that Cook followed in the Soul Cycle. So
just in D&D terms, true neutral, just might is right, nature is the way it is.
Yeah, they're trying to
kill, eat.
Yeah, they're trying to get back to the nexus. So they're based on, they're most inspired by like Buddhist or Hindu monks, right? Because they believe that the nexus just keeps spitting out souls repeatedly throughout history, and like they actually want to reunite with it and stop getting reincarnated, right? That's the whole purpose of their religion. But you could do an atavist monk who gets a hold of this thing. And that way we see him go from, yeah, he could be a good guy, but again, yeah, they're not really on the good evil axis. Yeah, they're more true neutral, but he gets started as a decent guy who just gets more and more ruthless and single-minded because this like legendary weapon he stumbles upon.
He stops speaking in complete sentences. He becomes more more aloof. No one questions his prowess in combat, and he only seems to kill to eat. But then something changes. Something narratively appropriate changes.
Yeah.
And someone who when and this is the hard part, when the magic of the weapon takes over, I think the key moment we're looking for is that inflection point in the character's mind. And you're the professional author. You have to figure out how to make something like this work, because the way I'm imagining it is there's an inflection point at which the character goes from friend, enemy, or me, you, or person to predator, prey. And even someone who the day before they could be friends or acquaintances, as soon as that thing gets between him and his next meal, or his next mate or whatever, he immediately turns on it, and that's when you can go into evil. because you witness animals in the wild and they'll fight, and those fights typically aren't lethal. Except when gorillas go at it for breeding rights, very often it is lethal, right? And then if you choose to go darker or more evil, then it could be, as soon as that switch is flipped, that character immediately goes for the kill.
Yeah, or
you're my next
stags who get entangled.
Stags who get entangled. I love it.
Yeah.
You're my next meal. Or, here's Empreb says, I need more power. I don't get this reference. You guys are the anime fans, or weebs in common parlance. I need more power. If all of a sudden that former acquaintance has the power or stands between him and the power to be the next tribal chief or to be the next, pride king or whatever, instant alpha male showdown, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I dig it. Yeah.
And then here's an interesting mental exercise. What would that sort of atavistic power look like if it were wielded by a woman?
Oh, now you're getting.
I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't know if I could answer that question, but I think it would look drastically different.
Yeah, and I already have some
I'm gonna
ideas.
make that your problem. I'm making that your problem.
Oh, thank you for making that my problem.
So I had two ideas. It sounds like we're gonna go with that one. Although I'm gonna text you more on that other idea later. That'll be a freebie. But that was awesome. Do you want to wrap it up here, or do you have any more information that you want about the weapon before we wrap up the show here?
Well, yeah. What kind of magical powers do you want it to have? What should it do?
It should, going with the theme of atavism and instinct and hunting, I think it should grant the wielder a sense of direction, sort of in video game parlance, like a hunter's mark or something like that. If I have a target, it should be able to assist me in reaching that target. Of course, if it's a spear or a harpoon, and the final form is up for grabs, it could even change slightly, depending on who's wielding it and the circumstances. But I think the important part is, it's going to be an effective weapon, right? If it's going to be able to pierce thick hides, or the human equivalent, which is, it's going to be able to pierce armor. It will, if it finds a more worthy target, it will betray its wielder, so that it falls into the right hands, to more worthy hands. Or will it? Or will it just, let the dice decide? Those are the powers I'm thinking of right now.
And man, dude, you keep reading my mind. It's interesting you mentioned that, because just as there was a Combat Frame Exceed RPG, I also have cooked up my own homemade Soul Cycle RPG, and the more I see the fruits of the work a weapon perk, the more I'm just fantasizing about seeing you guys going at it with characters armed with your weapons and just see who wins. Just have action figures fight each other,
That'd be great. I put the
it's available as a perk, by the way.
I put the perk up on the screen for everybody watching on YouTube, just in case. Yes.
Thanks for taking notes.
DJ Schreffler, spear hunts the better wielder. That could work. Yeah, we do have a crazy one. I would not let you guys down. As it's a, you know, forgive a smidgen of pride, but the reaction to the Harvester was so positive that I have made it my mission to be the crazy one in every offering. But anyway, you can play test and wield these weapons against each other. I'm looking forward to see what you come out with for this RPG. I haven't signed on for that because I already bought a worker weapon and money, but that's really cool. We've done it before. We're going to do another Combat Frame Exceed one. Those are always enjoyable experiences. I hope everybody who listened to that, especially towards the end, I hope you get what kind of experience it is to build a mech or work a weapon and how that might be valuable to you. Like if that sounds fun, just hanging out with Brian Niemeier for a couple hours and figuring out how to completely ruin his story, then the perk is worth it. And I hope you check it out. So let's put a ribbon on that, and we're gonna have to come back to that at a later time, Ryan, and finish up these notes.
Yeah, but we got a lot done.
I'm glad we got started on that. So let's open it back.
Page of notes on that. Yeah, nice.
Yes. I don't have any questions from the chat. So before we wrap it up, Daddy Warpig, any questions in chat? Go ahead and sling them, guys. Daddy Warpig, any last questions for Brian?
No, I'm good.
And thanks so much for your help. I'm so happy that we did this on air so that Warpig could contribute. I love the idea of the rapier being a foil.
Yeah.
Hey, anybody who's interested in doing the work weapon, that's the secret. If any of your ideas happen to be good, Brian's probably going to use them.
I got to get them somewhere. As I explained to John A. Douglas when a member of his chat asked where I get my ideas, I'm like, if we're going to steal them,
Absolutely. And that's what we do. I'm going to move this right into what's going on in the next couple of weeks here. That's what we do in Dungeons and Dragons. The best ideas are the stupid things that you come up as you play along. Some stupid stuff is going on in Trollopulus in the next week or two. We'll tell you all about it next time we get together. But in the meantime, I'm going to show this screen right now. You're funded, 500% funded. More backers, more fun. You get all the old books with it. And if you want, you can be in the book. You can have your character killed in a book. You can have your friends killed in a book. Or you can make a weapon like you heard me and Brian do here tonight. I totally recommend it. I'm sold. I'm a big Brian Niemeier fan. And I hope you check out the Burned Book. And Brian Niemeier, any last thoughts? Anything that we haven't talked about that we need to talk about?
Well, thank you for having me on again, guys. DW, thank you for listening with patience and wisdom and just dropping that brilliance bomb on us. So truly, you're a man who speaks when he has something to say, not just when he has to say something. And I think that's why your viewers value your insights. So, and yeah, Ronald, thank you for giving me an uphill climb again. It's going to be fun. And yeah, everybody get in there. Back the Burn Book. We've also got an original theme song. I did a bunch of firsts this time, guys. Had a professionally produced video. Had a professional composer create the Burn Book original theme song, which if you want, you can get for $1. So get in there. Like, let's make it at least $1 during the show. Standard market price. Yeah, there it is. And it is awesome. Like, I'm not just saying that. Other people have told me, like, wow, this is better than most movie soundtracks on Hollywood these days.
I listened to it. I liked it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you can listen to it you can sample it for free right there on the Indiegogo site.
Books have theme songs now. You did it. That's awesome.
Achievement unlocked.
I think we should call it a night, guys. Thanks so much for the chat, Daddy Warpig. The floor is yours.
All right, folks, I want to thank everyone who tuned in and listened live, participated in the chat. It was lively and jumping. I want to thank everyone who will tune in and listen later. Quick reminder, folks, we are available on youtube.com/geekgab. Once again, that's youtube.com/geekgab. Just about every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And this show is going to be kept here on YouTube so you can read the chat and bask in the glory of our fans' erudition and excitement. We are also available on the Google Play Store, on SoundCloud.com, and on the iTunes Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab. You can download us on the device of your choice, or just listen to us on the web. Please, if you're on YouTube, feel free to subscribe and click the bell so you'll get an announcement as to when we go live. You can jump in and participate in the chat for yourself. We are signing out for today, folks, but don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.